Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. I'm Sandra Johnson. We hope that you've made it over into today safe and sound. A bit of good news for us is that the tropical storm warning has now been discontinued for Jamaica as Tropical Storm Grace continues on a path away from the island. Still, while we breathe a sigh of relief at the news, we're still not quite in the clear yet as the hurricane season persists until the end of November. That means the possibility of other storms and what they bring. But we don't want you panicked, but rather prepared. ADPEM offers some useful information to help with that. Before any of those details, let's see what's happening in today's news.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Our children have been out of school for a year and a half. The impact on their education is significant and it will be long-lasting. As a responsible government, we cannot place the education of your children, our children, at risk. There is a ray of hope, and that hope comes in the form of the vaccine.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Today, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, August 18. Jamaica's infrastructure has largely been spared the wrath of Tropical Storm Grace. The system blanketed the island on Tuesday, dumping several inches of rainfall. Communication and Customer Services Manager at the National Works Agency, Stephen Shaw, says the damage was concentrated on flooding, downed trees, and utility lines. Parishes most impacted were St. Mary, Portland, St. Thomas, Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, and Clarendon. Mr. Shaw says the Works Agency is currently carrying out assessment and clearing roads in affected communities. At news time, 10 roads were impassable, 9 of them in St. Catherine and 1 in Clarendon. Several roads that were blocked are now open to vehicular traffic.
So, for example, we had a lot of water on the road from Freetown to Sandy Bay. 4 parts to Freetown is the road section. That corridor is once again passable. Between St. Andrew and St. Thomas, we had the road leading to 11 miles, 12 miles, 14 miles, those areas being impassable. It is passable. The floodwaters would have been receding in the Port Morant area, hardly crossing on those areas over in St. Thomas. So those areas are once again passable. Anyway, where we had stormwater flows overwhelming an area, those areas, as of now, are passable.
In the meantime, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ADPEM, is reporting that only 1 of 7 shelters is now in operation. Earlier today, the shelter, located at Rocky Point in Clarendon, was housing 16 persons who sought refuge from Tropical Storm Grace. ADPEM's Acting Director General, Richard Thompson, says shelters were previously opened and have since closed in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Mary and St. Thomas, housing 13 persons.
All the COVID-19 protocols would have been activated for those shelters that were activated. One person coming, the mask wearing, sanitizing. There was no need, we were told, to use any one of the isolation rooms at those shelters that were activated.
Persons are being reminded to obey the warnings issued by local authorities before, during, and after the passage of a weather system. ADPEM's Acting Director General Richard Thompson made the plea as some Jamaicans were caught flat-footed during yesterday's passage of Tropical Storm Grace. In one incident, 3 vehicles were trapped overnight in the Bog Walk Gorge after failing to adhere to the warning that the gorge was impassable. In another, a bus was washed into the Rasta Gully in Clarendon. Mr. Thompson says when persons disregard the notifications from local authorities, they're not only endangering themselves but the lives of first responders.
We still urge persons that whenever time we are having these kind of emergencies, these kind of rainfall activities, that they should not try to traverse areas that have been closed by the authority, areas that are prone to flooding, especially rivers, gullies, fords, streams. Don't try to cross those areas. So we keep reminding persons to be vigilant and to continue to help us to help you.
Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson is commending 2 men who rescued a female driver at 11 miles in Bull Bay during the passage of the storm. Still on Tropical Storm Grace-related news, The Ministry of Agriculture has dispatched teams to carry out assessment of damage to the sector. Portfolio Minister Floyd Green says preliminary reports from the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, are that eastern and central parishes are mostly affected. They include St. Mary, Portland, Clarendon, and St. Catherine. Minister Green says banana industry stakeholders are also reporting wind damage due to Tropical Storm Grace.
I did speak with Jamaica producers this morning, and the Member of Parliament for Southeast St. Mary, which has a significant banana grain population.
And the Meteorological Service of Jamaica has lifted the tropical storm warning for the system as it continues to move away from the island. Director of the Met Office, Evan Thompson, says Tropical Storm Grace has left the coast of Westmoreland and is moving towards the Cayman Islands. As a result, Mr. Thompson says isolated showers associated with the system should clear up in the coming days. In the meantime, the Met Service Director is urging Jamaicans to stay abreast of notices issued and be prepared for weather disturbances.
We are still in the middle of the hurricane season, and so anything could develop at any time. So it's important that all our residents pay special attention to information as soon as it is sent out, because it is critical that we continue to maintain a state of vigilance as we go through the hurricane season.
And finally, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has launched a special assistance fund for the Republic of Haiti. On Saturday, the neighboring island was rocked by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, which claimed close to 2,000 lives. Haiti is also reeling from flooding associated with the passage of Tropical Storm Grace. The fund is being managed by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. Donations may be made to ODPEM's current account at the NCB Oxford Road branch to account number 212-387-304. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Freedom and the use of violence is incompatible. There is no freedom where violence exists. I invite all Jamaicans to reflect on this. We must all make a concerted effort to reject violence in our daily lives.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Like I said earlier, we're still positioned in a hurricane season that's predicted to be an active one. Government is working overtime to ensure preparedness at the national level, and you should be too. Our team recently sat down with the Acting Director General of ODPEM, Richard Thompson, who gives us some general and practical tips for making it through the season safely.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Campbell. So happy to be back in your company. Today we'll be talking about the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season, which runs from June 1 to November 30. We have with us Mr. Richard Thompson, who is the Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. He's going to tell us about the expectations for the season this year and the country's level of preparedness and how to protect life and property. Mr. Thompson, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good. Let us start with what are we to expect for this season? We've been hearing that it's going to be an above normal season. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, the season has been projected to be above average. Average normally for a hurricane season is 14. So it is predicted to be 13 to 20 named storms, 6 to 10 to be hurricanes starting at 74 miles per hour. For your storm system, so it's really start at about 39 miles per hour, classifying as a tropical storm. And then it goes through a process to be up to, we hear a lot about Category 5 system, which is at over 157 miles per hour. And so we are expecting as well 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Major hurricanes being Category 3 systems. That is at 111 miles per hour, starting at that level, and so it is really shaping up to be very active season. Last year would have gone to about 30 systems, where we would have gone outside of the regular names for hurricane, and then we went into the Greek alphabet. It might not be so active this year, but it is shaping up to be a very active season.
My next question will be then, are we ready?
Yes, we are. We would have done a lot of work going into the season. There would have been a meeting of the National Disaster Risk Management Council that is chaired by the Prime Minister, and we would have done extensive work in terms of looking at our shelters, looking at our priority drains across the country, the work that the municipal corporations would have done in terms of their own preparation as well, looking at the localized drains, looking at the shelter process. They're a part of the process with the ODPEM. And so from last year, we would have put into the mix in terms of the assessment for shelters, the Ministry of Health, given COVID, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the Superintendent of Roads and Works, because our shelters have to be properly prepared and they have to be outside of the COVID standards that we are putting in, or that we would have put in from last year. We also have to ensure that our shelters is equipped to take the age population and persons who have disabilities. So we are actually catering for everyone in our shelters.
So we had a little test with Elsa.
Yes.
Did our systems hold up?
It held up to some extent. We would have seen a lot of rainfall
and some flooding.
And some flooding. So it held up to what was expected. Yes. What it does for us now, it literally provides us with a kind of a live simulation. Yes. So for us now to kind of recheck and have a relook at our systems and then now reshape what we have to do going further into the hurricane season.
Okay. So that's ODPEM. What should Jamaicans be doing now to secure their homes?
For the general public, one of the things that normally happens during hurricanes is that persons tend to lose their roofs. So your roof retrofitting is critical to the process. To the process of individual preparation. So a person should check. A lot of persons probably would have found out during Elsa that they would have been having roof leaks and all these things. So they have to, you sort that out now. You look at your roof, look at the members, look at whether you have enough hurricane straps. If you don't have those, you put those in. You look at your general yard situation. If you have a lot of stuff on the outside, sometimes we tend to have a lot of old stuff that we would throw down in the yard. You have to start cleaning up those, getting rid of them. What you can get rid of, what you have to store, you put them in storage, because these can act as missiles during a hurricane, and you don't want for it to damage your house, damage your neighbor, and also damage individuals. So you have to make the necessary preparation now to clean up those. A lot of us we tend to have trees in our yard, mango trees, coconut trees. If you have to do some limbing of those, you do that. If the limbs are too close to the house, you do that. If the trees are too large, we speak about replanting of trees and looking at what is happening in terms of climate change. But if for your home security and for security of lives, if the trees are too large and they are too close to your house, you probably might need to think of getting rid of those, and then you replant something which is not so close to the house, because you still want to ensure that we're maintaining that kind of environmental and ecosystem dynamics. Right. So you replant those, but if it's too close to the house, then you have to look at doing some limbing or removing the tree altogether, so you can be protecting your house.
So we need to be looking at our roofs, we need to be looking at the trees that we have around us. And what about our windows?
Yes, so for our windows, those tend to blow out in a storm if they are not properly protected. So for persons who can afford to put in storm shutters, we say put those in. Yes, they are pretty expensive to do, but if you can afford to do it, you have to do it to protect your windows.
Okay, we're going to take a break now and come back with more useful information on hurricane preparedness. Please stay with us.
Hurricanes can strike at any time. In the event of one, be prepared to act quickly. If a hurricane watch or warning has been issued, review your home disaster response plan. Map out likely routes to evacuate if your home is at risk, and confirm with relatives or friends you plan to stay with. Also, confirm the location of the nearest shelter. Check your emergency supplies and restock if necessary. Remember, disasters do happen, so be prepared.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're talking about the Atlantic hurricane season. With us is Mr. Richard Thompson, who is the Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. Tell us now about our shelters. We are still in a pandemic, right? You have to observe certain protocols. You have to train your staff. Tell us, how is that going and how ready are we?
Yeah, so we are still in a global pandemic. We still, COVID is still real in Jamaica, despite what a lot of persons might still be thinking. COVID is still real, so we have to make preparation for our shelters amidst COVID, and everything that we have done for our shelters were done against COVID imperatives. And we would have started this from 2020, when we would have had our first case in March of 2020. We start looking at how best now we would be managing our shelters going into the hurricane season. So we would have recrafted our national shelter protocol to ensure that it is reflecting COVID standards. So part of that standard is to ensure that there is temperature checks at the facilities, there is enough sanitizers at the facilities. Shelters are generally crowded, so you have to look at your social distancing protocol, or you set out your cots with your 6 feet intervals and 6 feet around the cots. Yes. But critical to that, and one of the most essential components, is to ensure that there are isolation areas in every single shelters. So we would have done all the shelter assessment way before the hurricane season, and we would have put in place 86 shelters nationally. And every single one of these shelters have an isolation area, where if someone comes in and they're already showing sign of COVID, you can't turn them away because you have to provide safe refuge for everyone in a hurricane. You have to ensure now that those persons can be placed in an isolation area. If persons are already in the shelters and you have persons showing any signs of COVID-19, then they are placed in the isolation areas as well. Isolation area is equipped with its own bathroom facilities. Some of the isolation areas have bathroom already attached to the facility. Some we have to ensure that there is a bathroom close enough to the facility where that would be used, the isolation area that is, where that would be used by the persons alone who are in isolation. Yes. So you don't have a mixing of the general shelter population with persons who are placed in isolation, because if they're actually positive with COVID, we want to ensure that we don't have kind of a double whammy where we are responding to a hurricane, and then you start having, after the hurricane response, an explosion of the cases of COVID in the country.
Persons have had to be trained as well, right, to manage these centers.
Yes, so the training would be looking now at the new protocol, and so all our shelter, we would have gone through a process of training and some resensitization with our shelter managers. A little bit difficult in this whole COVID-19 scenario, where we can't have much face-to-face interaction, yes. But a lot of the training were done, using the digital platforms that everyone is using these days to do those trainings. So we would have done those, and we would have done our resensitization. Right.
Tell us about the shelters. Where can we find them, and some numbers that we can?
Well, they're all around in every single parish. And we have very experienced shelter managers. Some would have been in the system from in the 80s, and we commend those persons for the level of volunteerism and that kind of sense of duty to nation. And so they're across the entire country. Persons can make contact with their parish offices. They can go on our ODPEM website at www.odpem.org.jm. Part of the new process as well is to, whenever time our shelters are activated, you can go on the ODPEM website and see the shelters that would have been activated. The move from green to red, that kind of thing. So we're using the technology to facilitate. There are going to be times
when you can't go on our website.
And so you can call the ODPEM office 906-967425, or 754-907728, and you can call your parish offices as well, and we list all those offices on the ODPEM website at present, and there's a list in there so persons can go on from now, and you familiarize yourself. Yes. And you write down the numbers and you get the contact as well for your parish offices.
When people are going to shelters, they tend to take everything on their own. What should we not take to shelters? What do we need to take?
Well, you need to take for the outset some non-perishables. You take your so you can tie you over. We have to ensure as well that we are providing for persons who generally won't be able to come in with any supplies. So the state mechanism will ensure that those persons are provided for. You take along your medication. Persons who have some degree of comorbidities, your diabetes, your hypertension, you take along your medication. If you have any other condition and you're on medication, you take along those with you. Formulas for babies, if you're taking babies into the shelters, formulas, diapers, those things for babies, those have to be in. We don't admit animals in the current shelters. That's something that I think we have to look at going forward, because a lot of persons know in Jamaica we used to have dogs, but there are more dog owners. Yes. There are more dog owners in country now, and persons have other pets. So that's something as well that we have to start looking at, how you provide an additional shelter for pets and all these things. It happens in other jurisdictions. Something that we have to pay critical attention to in Jamaica. Yes. But you for now you don't take your pets in. We try to ensure that you're not bringing in any illicit items. So the shelter managers have to manage those. The constabularies are part of the process. They do their regular checks from time to time. So no knives, no illegal guns, that kind of thing. You don't bring those into the shelters. And you best as possible come in. And what we have been advocating for is that when you come into the shelters, you take care of the facilities, and you leave them in the same condition that you would have gone in and see it, or leave it even better.
This has been Get the Facts, and our guest was Mr. Richard Thompson, who is Acting Director General at the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM. For more information on disaster preparedness, please visit the agency's website at odpem.org.jm. You may call them at 906-9674 or email them at odpem@cwjamaica.com. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you more useful information, I'm Enthros Campbell. Thanks for watching, and do take good care.
Yo, this is ODPEM. We're committed to reducing the impact of disasters occurring in Jamaica. ODPEM. We're ever ready to assist you before, during, and after a disaster. But everybody have a role to play, so make we work together and follow the plan. Whether rich or poor or where you come from, hurricanes affect everyone, so be prepared. Prevention is better than cure. Be prepared. Listen to ODPEM. A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
COVID-19 is still very much a global pandemic, so our local response must be robust and varied. Here's one effort by government to help fight the virus. It's the installation of hand washing stations across the country. Let's see what's being done.
$3.5 million, an investment to encourage Jamaicans to keep washing their hands. Through this public-private sector partnership, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has received 100 hand wash stations. The stations have been strategically installed to ensure the most vulnerable, primarily the elderly, can benefit and be protected against the coronavirus.
We're going to be placing one at all infirmaries across Jamaica. Will have one of these stations.
State-owned Golden Age homes are also recipients of the hand-washing stations. So too are town centers and municipal buildings across the country. The installation of the stations is in support of the government's COVID-19 response to safeguard those within the public domain. As everyone would have known by now, the World Health Organization stipulates that hand washing is an effective tool to prevent the virus and other diseases. And so, the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development partnered with telecommunications giant Digicel to outfit these locations with the hand wash stations. Parish municipal corporations will have oversight for these stations within town centers and at the councils, while the Board of Supervision monitors those at the homes and infirmaries.
It is important that the public recognize the importance of it. We have a population of over 1,500 residents, and God has been good. Only 3 deaths so far across the country.
The donation of these hand washing stations are critical in the fight against the COVID-19 disease because, as you know, hand washing and sanitizing and practicing proper hand hygiene is a key element and key component in preventing and containing the spread of the disease, which is critical for our infirmaries at this time.
It's very important that the private sector cooperates and work alongside with the government, both central and local government, to effect change and to effect transformation and to reach out and to show a caring society.
This is precisely the kind of public-private partnership that we need, especially during this time as we confront the COVID-19 pandemic together. So when it is the Minister ODPEM reached out to us to say, let's get on board with providing more of these hand washing stations right across the country so that people can have ready access to just doing the basic thing of washing their hands.
It has been a collective response as we, as a country, unite to preserve and to maintain those in our country who are in need of state support.
Our magazine package ends right here, but what should continue is your need to remain prepared throughout the hurricane season. As always, thanks for making it Jamaica Magazine. If this is the point at which you caught us, or if you simply need a refresher, you can watch the entire show, yes, from the beginning, on the JIS YouTube channel. You'll also find other useful features and news items. And there is more information for you to access on our website, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. From all of us here at the JIS, I'm Sandra Johnson. See you soon.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.